Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to our fifth episode of the Toad Podcast. I'm here today with Angie Garcia. Angie, how does it feel to be back?
Good.
Good. Luis, you're the main co-host. How do you feel?
I'm good. I'm tired, but we're trudging forward.
Powering through it.
Yes, sir.
How do you want to kick things off today, Luis?
First, I'd like to start off with two immense shout outs to two very generous and caring people and supportive of the pod, best friends of the pod, even one would say. And the first person we'd like to give a shout out to is our boy Marvin. Thank you for your support. And Renee, who is our second shout out?
Our second shout out goes out to Serena. Serena's been a huge contributor of topics and feedback, and she's one of the people helping to move this podcast in the right direction we want it to go in.
So thank you to Marvin and Serena. But now we will go into our episode where the focus will be based on some feedback from you guys. That we will be talking about mental health, and we will start off by talking about what it means. What is the definition of mental health? Then we will answer some questions that were predetermined by me, Angie and Renee answering them, as well as I. And then we'll end the show talking about mental health in the Hispanic community, as us three here come from Hispanic families. But I wanted to start off by reading a definition of mental health that can be found on the mentalhealth.gov website. This website says, mental health includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects how we think, feel, and act. It also helps determine how we handle stress, relate to others, and make choices. Mental health is important at every stage of life, from childhood and adolescence through adulthood. It goes on to say, over the course of your life, if you experience mental health problems, your thinking, mood, and behavior could be affected. Many factors contribute to mental health problems, including biological factors such as genes or brain chemistry, life experiences such as trauma or abuse. Family history of mental problems is also something to take into consideration. And that is the definition for mental health. The first question I wanted to start off with you guys is, how do you guys cope with an episode of sadness, or in my case, when I have an episode of my depression?
So when dealing with an episode of sadness or depression,
Mm-hmm.
I think the way I find myself best coping with it is just taking a walk,
Mm-hmm.
just kind of being away from people,
Yeah.
being away from everyone, kind of that isolation.
You like to be on your own.
Yeah, because there's been situations, there have been events where if someone tries reaching out to me, I
Mhm.
don't always respond in the best way.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a cornered animal, you know? If it starts to feel threatened,
Mm-hmm.
it'll lash out, it'll bite, it'll attack. I think people are very similar. We're basically animals. We have those animal instincts. So if you're feeling sad, if you're feeling depressed, and someone's incessantly pushing on you, invading your privacy, you're
Mhm.
going to lash out.
Angie, how about you?
I would agree with him. I do the same. Taking a walk or exercising, or at least like in high school, and I would deal mostly with, episodes of sadness. I would say what I did was listening to music. And I've always been really emotional since I was like little. So with that being said, I used to cry a lot. Not as much anymore, but I would like to listen to sad music to,
Mm-hmm.
let myself get into the feelings, cry it out. And if I wanted to write about it, just to write in a journal, I would do that.
A couple questions for you both from your answers. I want to start off with Angie. You said that you cry,
Mhm.
and there's a notion around mental health, no matter who you hear from, crying about it is something that should be kept inside, especially when you have an episode of sadness or you're stressed out or whatever. Would you agree with the statement, or would you say that crying about it actually should be done because it helps?
I would say crying should be done because it helps. When it's being overdone,
Mhm.
then that's a different thing. But especially if you are keeping it in, that's when it actually makes it worse for yourself.
If you keep it in.
Yes.
So you suggest that it's better to cry it if you have the need.
Yeah. The only thing that I find personally, like, not a waste of time, but like that's not really worth it is when you worry about something or when you're nervous about something.
And you cry about it?
If I'm
Is
nervous,
that what you're saying?
no, just like in general, like
Oh,
a
okay.
general feeling. But when it comes to crying, I do recommend, and myself, I will let it out.
Renee, you said that you like isolation, and people in the mental health community have heard the notion for the longest of times that if you're someone with a friend, family, or just know someone that has depression or any mental health illness, and the best way is to never let them be alone. And there's cases where there's people you can't leave alone because they're a danger to themselves or someone else. But then there's other cases where they're not a danger to anything. Why is it okay for that person, for the person to be left alone? As you said that you like to be in isolation, can you give a perspective of why you prefer that and why it's okay for someone to be on their own and not have someone over their shoulder?
So, like everything in life, it depends.
Mm-hmm.
Everything depends. You can never have like a clear-cut answer for most questions.
Yeah.
For this particular question, people should be left in isolation because they need to figure out how to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a friend and you're trying to influence them to deal with that particular feeling a certain way,
Mm-hmm.
that might not always result in the person handling it in the best way possible.
Okay.
For example, Angie mentioned crying and everything. You have to know how to be able to cry responsibly.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds weird, but I mean, you can't just be in the middle of an important business meeting and thinking about the stuff going on at home and then just break down crying.
Okay.
You have to know when, where to do it, when it's acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously they're not gonna, if you start breaking down in the middle of a business meeting, they're not going to hurt you, but it is going to like negatively impact the environment.
Yeah, in some cases, some jobs will even tell you it's unprofessional and you don't get reported because of it.
Exactly. So that's why I think you have to be able to be alone to know, well, okay, I can do this, this, and this alone.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm depressed about this particular topic, I need to deal with it in this particular way. I need to talk about it. So that's why I think you need to know, you need to be alone to like figure it out. But that's just me.
So the next question I wanted to ask you, you two, is that people have a difficult time relating to mental illness. What is something you would like explained by the ones suffering from it? So in our case, as I stated in a previous episode, that I have an anxiety disorder and I have had major depressive disorder for multiple years. So as you two being two of my closest friends, and in general to the area of mental health, what do you guys think should be explained by someone going through it?
Going back to like the whole isolation thing, like
Mm-hmm.
how do you tell the difference between just extreme deep sadness and
Mm-hmm.
actual depression?
Okay.
Like that's probably one thing I'd like more clearly explained,
Yeah.
because I feel like there's a blurry line between them.
Yeah. I mean, understandable. I've heard that one multiple times before. And just to give you a quick answer, I think it all depends on the person. I think there's some people where if you know them for some time, you kind of know their personality and behaviors that they do frequently, where it's like, oh, I know the type of mood they are in because they're doing this or that or saying things like this or that. But I think even the person suffering from it sometimes has that same issue with themselves, where they're feeling, let's say a morning, sometimes I wake up and I already feel, not like it's going to be a bad day, but I already feel in a bad place just by waking up. So I already have a feeling that, oh, okay, this is going to be a difficult day at least. So as the day goes along, nothing really affects my mood, or I'm not feeling a certain way. So it's hard for me to start thinking about how, it's hard for me to start thinking if I'm having an episode of depression or I'm just in a bad mood or something. So sometimes we have it, but I think it depends on the person and what their kind of things. If they start doing things that they didn't do before and they become a constant, then that's probably a good tell of, okay, this isn't, they're in a bad mood or they're feeling bad about something. They're having an episode or a moment. So that's when you intervene. And then you intervene however you decide to. That depends on the support system. How about you, Angie? What is one thing that you would want to be explained by someone suffering from mental health?
Honestly, not to copy Renee, but I will say the same thing. But the thing is, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Like, because I know and hear a lot of people, whether if it's in movies or in reality, that people say, like, I don't suffer from that. Like, not suffer, but, like, I don't have to, I don't go through that.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, I hear a lot of people that say, oh, my God, dude, I'm so freaking depressed. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's a difference. You're not depressed. You're
Yeah.
sad. How do you feel? when people say
When
that.
people say that,
Mhm.
at the beginning, I will speak candidly and say that it kind of bugged me in a certain way,
Mhm.
especially if it was someone where I knew their situation and I knew that what they explicitly meant. So if it was someone, whether it was a friend or a classmate, I won't say that I disliked them. I'll just say classmate, and I could hear them say that, or they would say to me
Mhm.
as if I was gonna tell them something. It would rub me the wrong way because it was like, well, I know you, and I know what you're going through, and that really isn't the same. But I don't like as I started getting older, and going through the motions year after year, and meeting other people, working with people with the same or different mental health issues I had, and hearing their side of the story to other things, other common questions like that. I started to instead of staying quiet and making faces or making a comment inside my head about how they were rubbing me the wrong way, I started asking them, oh, okay, what's wrong? And I would get into the heart of the problem of why they were feeling sad, and then work from there instead of not saying anything or being mad about it. And it kind of like an education experience,
Mhm.
because I wouldn't explicitly say, oh, this isn't depression, this is just a sad. But once they worked it through it, they were usually okay or feeling better from it. So they weren't longer saying that. But there's been people where they would go again a couple of days later or something, or I would hear it or see it on social media, and then I would talk to those people and say, hey, this is what I'm going through, and let me help you, because I know we're not in the same position, and who knows, maybe yours could turn to something like mine,
Mhm.
where you get diagnosed and you need all these stuff. So I wanted to help the movement of educating those people,
Mhm.
so that maybe they didn't know what they were saying, and some people are gonna say, "Oh, that's such a soft thing to get mad about or something." But I mean, it's always helpful to help someone figure themselves out, and then also educate them in what really is going on.
Is that what influenced you to major in psychology in college?
I think I've had a lot of factors. I think for me, I've always once I found out about psychology, I knew I wanted to be in it,
Mhm.
regardless of my own issues and issues from those around me. But factors that kept me into psychology, I would say the advocacy of the issues of mental health that aren't really talked about, or those that are not of the community that don't know of, did certainly boast the excitement I have to be a therapist someday. But it was one of the factors, and I'm grateful that the program here at our school is pretty good. So, Renee, any bounce off question you have before I continue?
Not any burning ones that I can think of. No.
All right, so we're gonna change up a little tune and go a little less serious for a little bit. So, when you are feeling stressed and anxious or sad, what is your go-to meal? I like to start off with Renee because Renee loves his food, and he loves it in a very certain and specific way. So, Renee, I know you have a job later, and is in a restaurant. But what is your go-to meal?
My go-to meal when I am stressed. I mean, probably my favorite snack of all time: cookies.
What type of
They drink.
cookies?
From where? What brand?
All right. If we want to get specific,
We want to,
Yeah.
flavor them in our mouth.
let me
Savor
give.
them.
Let me give a quick little shout out to Insomnia Cookies.
Oh, here we go. I've heard this story a couple days ago.
They're like the best cookies of all time, in my humble opinion.
Uh-huh.
They're just oof.
Are they a
amazing.
Chicago thing?
Yeah. No,
Okay.
they're kind of global.
Or Indiana thing.
I forgot we have Indiana girl in the booth.
Yeah.
They're a national treasure,
Okay.
but I figure they're not very well known. So
What specific insomnia cookie?
my go-to is the Snickerdoodle.
Okay. So
Shout
so you can be in your worst feels, worst anxiety about a grade or an exam. You're stressed about life and school and whatever. And I give you a snickerdoodle and you're in a better mood.
The Snickerdoodle from Insomnia,
Mm-hmm.
especially if it's warm. It's just like it caramelizes your tongue. It melts. You can feel.
All right, we'll let Renee in his savor moment go aside. How about you, Angie? What is your go-to sad meal?
I think I would say honestly it's more like a snack too. It's more like any type of chocolate bar or any sweets, like any candy. Cause I do have a sweet tooth, so anything that's sweet.
You've never had braces before, though, right?
Nope.
Damn. Lucky you.
Sadly, and I wanted braces, but I've never had them.
If it's not braces, it's glasses, but everyone wants them. Everyone wants a fucked up set of teeth or a fucked up set of eyeballs.
Only after the fact, though.
Yeah. Like they want to live for it with a couple. They want good teeth for a couple years, and then once that brace itches, it's like, oh fuck my teeth up. I want braces.
The thing is, though, I would just need them from the bottom, not the front.
I had them for 2 years, so it's not the best experience.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
What
but
about you,
you know,
Luis?
I can't relate, so yeah.
That's good.
What about you? What's your go-to?
I would say probably a burger, but I don't usually have those because I want to lose weight for a special thing I'm doing this summer, and I'd like to keep off the bad foods. But if you get a good old burger from practically anywhere, as long as it's decent, I'll be in a better mood. I mean, the easy answer was I could say it was my medicine, but that's not really a meal.
Nope.
How about go-to song? Do you have a go-to song when you're sad? Especially Angie, who like Jesus, when they're in a bad mood and it's a sad mood, it's like, oh, make me sadder.
Yeah.
So what is a sad song that you resort to?
Well, it depends on mood. If I want to listen to English songs or Spanish songs.
Okay, give us the English go-to and the Spanish go-to. We have a very diverse audience.
Let me see. Okay, for Spanish, I could think of right away. It's not more of a song. It's more like a genre. So, like, for anybody that knows Drake, you know, it's more of their songs.
Isn't that pop?
It's like Spanish pop, no?
Spanish pop, probably?
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
But, like, the sad songs. So, you know, like the song Invierno, Déjame Ir, you know, those type of...
Heartbreaking songs.
Continue.
For English songs, that's a good one. I honestly don't know. You know,
Just first one that pops into your head, you're like, oh, damn. I do listen to that a lot when I'm sad.
When I Was Your Man by Bruno Mars.
sure.
Stop giving your aunt. No.
Yeah,
no.
actually, yeah. Bruno Mars does have good. I mean, I like his songs, and the majority of those sad songs are pretty good.
All right, cop out. We'll let it slide.
Okay, thank
Renee,
you.
what is your go-to song? Do you also have a Spanish and an English version?
Not really. I don't discriminate based on language.
So what's your specific go-to song?
My specific go-to song is this little song by the name of Power Trip by J. Cole.
Okay.
I love that song.
He does love his J. Cole.
I love that song.
He was mad yesterday in the office when we were listening to music and a J. Cole song was skipped. It had to be put back because it affected him in a very wrong way.
You never skip J. Cole.
Exactly.
Whatever happened to her? Do you remember?
To who?
The girl who skipped the song.
I don't know. I think she wasn't in today, so we'll see what happens. And I would say my go-to song, "Terrible Things" by Mayday Parade, the piano, the one with the piano. That would be my go-to sad song. Okay, now we're back to going a little bit more serious, and I want to ask you guys, what are coping mechanisms that you guys use when you're fighting a bout of anxiety, stress, depression, or sadness, or depression in some cases? How do you guys go about it? I know you said walking, isolation, but what are like coping mechanisms that other people can use that you guys use yourselves?
Something I started doing a year ago when I started feeling a lot of anxiety and panic attacks. You would kind of say my sophomore year, the beginning of my sophomore year.
Of college?
Yes, of college. I started doing meditation. So that is something that's helped me.
Mm-hmm.
And
What prompted it? Like, what was like, oh, I'm going to meditate. Like, this is why I'm meditating.
how did I start? I don't know. I think I'd seen it online from I think on a social media. And I was like, well, I've always heard of it. And people say that it helps. So why not try it to see if it helps
And
me?
are you still currently meditating?
I try to every day. But sometimes I do. It's hard. But, it is important to at least 10 minutes a day. Yeah.
Okay.
I like to do it in the morning. But if not, in the evening, or if not, at night before I go to sleep.
And keep following through with you. Is it from YouTube or you have an app that you go to? How do you meditate?
I know there's a couple of apps that are helpful, and they're really nice, and the features are nice on the apps. But the thing is, most of them
On the what?
on the apps.
Oh, I thought you said ass. Yeah, right.
No. The thing is with the apps though, they have they have great features.
With the what?
With just like the features and the look of the app, like once you're on it. But the thing is, the one that I've had for like a year or so that I download and then delete. Yes, the app.
She did.
No, this time it was on.
When you meditate, do you go from using something on YouTube or do you go on your phone or something? What do you use to meditate?
Before, I used to use an app that I started, or that I heard about with
What's it called?
It's called Calm. I'm pretty sure you guys heard of it.
Okay.
I really like the feature and the look of it, but the thing is, I'm a broke college student, so I would only have the 7-day free trial.
Okay.
But now I do go to YouTube, and I do find a couple of them. And the channel that I really like, if you guys are interested in, it's called, the channel is with 2 guys. It's called The Honest Guys, and they have a lot of good videos. For meditation videos. But another app that I've heard of, when I go on YouTube and it's it plays through the ads, it's called Headspace, and I downloaded that app yesterday. But the thing is, I kind of have to wait to download that app because I have full storage, so I will
As
have to
always.
wait on that. Yeah, but yeah.
Renee?
So,
We've had meditation, and what would you?
My go-to
Throughout.
thing is sleep. To be honest,
Of course, it is.
no, that gives me more stress. Like,
Nah.
I'm supposed to be doing this and I'm sleeping. No,
because it's like sometimes you just need to recharge those batteries. You know.
you do, but
There's a
yeah.
difference between like good sleep and then those that suffer from sleeping too much. That is
Yeah.
also a symptom of depression and mental health.
That's true.
But no, like
for him-
a quick little nap.
For him, it's his
Power nap.
he copes with sleeping. Is there anything else? Not to get into specific details about it, but anything other things that you guys use to cope?
Not any immediate and legal ones that come to mind though.
For me, it's been a while, but something that I started to get into a routine of again when I started experiencing that my sophomore year.
Okay.
I tried so working out in the morning, because I know that at any time of the day, as long as you work out, that's great. But from what I've heard and seen from like doing research on the internet, is that they say if you work out in the morning, it's way better because you release your stress hormones.
Mm-hmm.
So that's better. And the mornings, your mornings are supposed to be for you only. So from little stuff that I've heard, I'm just gonna go on a little rant right now, is don't use your phone right away when you wake up. Drink water right away. Journal and meditate in the morning. Again, work out, go on a walk, and just start your day off with breakfast and be productive. Do your hair, do your makeup if you're a girl. Just stuff like that. Just get
Or a
ready.
boy.
for the
Yeah,
day
what if
that-
you're a guy and you want to do your makeup?
Or
yeah,
a boy.
Yeah.
I'm triggered.
Yeah, that's it.
In my case, I used to journal, but it isn't for everyone, including me. So I don't journal that much anymore. I write instead, like write about ideas I get, like when I'm in my creative moods. I play sport. I be active instead of working out. I go play outside with my dog when the weather allows it. Like today. Today would be a good day to work out outside even, or play with my dog. I like to read a lot and watch a lot of movies. I haven't been doing that, but I've been busy with homework and stuff. But watching films, especially new ones. I never like to re-watch one unless it's with family, with a significant other, or just to myself if I'm feeling like, oh, this is the type of thing I want to do right now. So I indulge on it. Eating is something that has a blurry line. There's things such as not eating enough because you have bad mental health, or you're eating too much. So that's something I've been dealing with. So I try to eat and see, okay, is this enough for today, or do I need more? And that's how I've been able to distinguish my own eating habits. But my dog plays probably the biggest role in my coping mechanism. When I'm sad or I'm going through an episode at home, I go with my dog and I just start playing with her, or I cuddle with her and we end up falling asleep, going back to Renee's sleeping coping skill.
Strategy.
But I don't try to sleep too much. I like wake up and I'm like, Angie, I'm like, oh, shit, I gotta do this
Ponte las
homework.
pilas,
Yeah.
ándale, you got time is money.
But yeah, this would be mine. Going back to the whole knowing more and educating more, what is something that should change about mental health? And we're going to ignore the stigma because we already spoken about that. We all feel strongly about the stigma around mental health. What is something that you guys would change about it? Or go with Renee. He looks like he's been pondering this question for 10 minutes.
So one of the things that should change about mental health, besides the stigma, is probably the way most people deal with it.
Okay. Can you dive into that? Be more
can-
specific.
So I feel like a lot of the time with most things,
Mm-hmm.
people either don't give it the attention it requires,
Mm-hmm.
or they overindulge in like drugs or coping mechanisms they think are gonna work,
Bad ones.
coping mechanisms,
Yeah.
or just even too much of a good thing can be a bad thing. Sometimes
Yeah.
even the good coping mechanisms, if you do too much of it, like you said, too much sleep, too much eating.
Well, I mean, I could talk from experience. One of the worst symptoms when you have not only the episode, but depression or any mental health illness is that you start not liking or not enjoying the things you used to like. So I can imagine someone feeling an episode of 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 sadness, and every time resorting to doing the same favorite thing and then not enjoying it after. So continue.
Well, that was pretty much it. Like I said, just the way people deal with it, and either not giving enough attention or overindulging
Okay.
in coping mechanisms.
Angie.
Something I would like to change is that I know there's a lot of, like, I don't want to say ignorant people, but, the lack of knowledge that people have,
Mm-hmm.
especially within families, is that I know this could kind of be impossible. I mean, it's not that it's impossible. It'll be kind of, like, hard to start it, but I think everyone at least should have at least, like, one appointment with a therapist, if that makes sense. So, like, I feel like everybody should have one experience at least with a therapist, so, like, especially with parents.
Uh-huh.
They don't know, like, when I was going through my anxiety year, which was, like, 2017, 2018, the beginning of last year,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like parents understand, they try to understand you, or, like, siblings or friends, but they don't know how an appointment goes or how you feel, which mental health, how do you say it? Illness you're going through. So I feel like if a parent or somebody that is being more, like, judgmental, or they just don't know, I think it will be nice for them to experience that. And even if they don't have any issues, everybody has problems and issues, because even therapists, psychologists have their own therapists to talk it out to.
Mm-hmm.
So I think everybody should go. And I know it's going to be impossible, at least with the healthcare, but I think that's something that should be thought about or recommended in healthcare.
That's a good answer. I like both of your answers.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My thing would be the myths, and I have a couple here. Going back again to the mental health website, .gov website, they have myths and a fact. So they destroy they turn around the myth and give factual information. So the first one is one that I've heard since the beginning of the Earth, and the myth is mental health problems don't affect me. And the fact of the matter is mental health problems are actually very common. And this website says that in 2014, 1 in 5 American adults experienced a mental health issue, 1 in 10 young people experienced a period of major depression, and 1 in 25 Americans lived with a serious mental illness, which includes things such as schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, or major depression disorder, which is my mental illness. And it says, suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the United States. It accounts for the loss of more than 41,000 American lives each year, which is double the lives lost to homicide. All right. Another myth is that children don't experience mental health problems. The fact is that even very young children may show early signs of mental health concerns. These mental health problems are often clinically diagnosable and can be a product of the interaction of biological and psychological as well as social factors. Half of the mental health disorders show first signs before someone turns 14 years old, and 3/4 of mental health disorders begin before you're 24. So none of us here are older than 24, so we're still potentially can be showing signs in the next couple of years about a mental health disorder if you haven't already showed them. Another mental health myth is that, and this is one that does rug me really the wrong way, is that people with mental health problems are violent and unpredictable. This website says that the vast majority of people with mental health problems are no more likely to be violent than anyone else. And most people with mental health illnesses are not violent. They are only 3 to 5% of violent acts can be attributed to individuals living with a serious mental health illness. That's 3 to 5%. It also goes on to say that people with severe mental illnesses are 10 times more likely to be victims of the crime of violence than the general population. So that's just another number to put that into debunking the myth. There's a whole list of mental health disability myths. Therapy and self-help are a waste of time. Why bother when you can just take a pill? Fact is, treatment for mental health problems varies depending on the individual, and it could include medication, therapy, or even both. Many individuals work with a support system during the healing and recovery process. For me, I've been able to get better, not entirely better, where I don't have these two mental health illnesses, but for me, it's worked where I take medication. I used to go to therapy. I went for therapy for a very long time. I have almost a year without going to therapy because that was a decision that me and my therapist came that I was in a good position where we should try out now therapy and see if that sticks. If I'm doing better, I continue to be doing better, then we can just keep the no therapy permanent. And luckily for me, I have been able to be in a good state where I don't have to go back to therapy. I can always go back if I need to, but it's been almost a year, so I'm only on medication, and obviously I have my mechanisms and my support system. So there's a list of mental health illnesses, but we will now be focusing on to another topic that is about mental health, and that is Hispanic community about mental health. And I want to start off by reading off this article from the website NAMI.org, which is the National Alliance on Mental Health. Specifically, they have a part where it says Latino mental health. And it says, how do mental health conditions affect the Latino community? And it says, while Latino community shows similar susceptibility to mental illness as the general population, unfortunately, we experience disparities in access to treatment and in the quality of treatment we receive. This inequality puts us at a higher risk for more severe and persistent forms of mental health conditions. So I wanted to ask you guys, if you guys are knowing of someone with mental health, or when you guys feel you have an episode of a bad mental health day, do you guys feel like you have enough resources to go to where you can pick one and say, oh, I can go here to get treatment or get some questions answered, or talk to someone? Either of you two can answer.
Yes.
Okay. Why?
Because our close group of friends, or even a staff member or the counseling center.
Are you talking about our campus?
Yes.
Okay.
I find it really helpful, and especially in our SSP office, our
office?
trio.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel very comfortable with everybody.
Okay.
So yeah.
Renee?
Yeah, I feel like when I'm at school, when I'm home, I kind of know what to do or where to go.
Okay.
If I'm struggling. So I'm a very observant person.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing I've learned to know. Like, I've learned to know, I know what to do depending on the situation I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
Or like depending on the problem, I know who to go to. So yeah, I know my options. I know my resources.
So I bring up this topic because as you guys said that you guys feel like you have resources, in 2001, a Surgeon General report found that only 20% of Latinos with symptoms of psychological disorder talk to a doctor about their concerns, and only 10% contact a mental health specialist. And obviously we know that if you don't get help and you have these systems and they become persistent and worsen, that your mental health is going to be affected, and everything else is part of your daily life. And another issue is that in the Latino community, we talked about it last time with Jesus, that mental health isn't an issue that's taken very seriously because of culture, because of multiple other factors. And I wanted to bring this up because I wanted to hear Angie's side, and not only as a fresh perspective for someone that wasn't here for the show, she's also one of the few females in our support group, our friend system that we have at the office. So I wanted to ask Angie the question that we spoke about last time about her personal experiences with mental health in her family.
So from what I could remember, anxiety has always been, I guess, the mental illness that I've always experienced.
Okay.
So from what I remember, probably at the age or grade, from what I could go back furthest is third grade.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this fear that I used to have. I'm pretty sure I don't have it now, which I'm not going to share. I'll probably share in the future episode if, this does come again. Because it is kind of weird, but I'm not ready to share yet.
Okay.
So with that being said, okay, so I had a phobia. And I remember when I felt bad, you know, I didn't know that it was anxiety. I just felt like, oh my God, I feel bad. Like, you know, what's going on? And I remember telling my mom, you know, I don't feel good, you know, because if it starts affecting you mentally, that's when the symptoms is going to affect you physically. So I thought like I was going to get sick, you know, like with anxiety, you know, there's people that throw up or, you know, just from feeling so bad or just stuff like that. I would tell my mom or my dad, but most of the time it was my mom. And she's like, you know, it's all in your head. You know, think about something else. You're thinking about it too much. Go do something that you like. You know, it's not that. And recently, not until the year of 2017, in December of that end of the year, was when my parents really saw, like, when my anxiety was really at its highest peak. And I remember at the time I was in Mexico because my grandpa had passed away from my mom's side. And we were, I think it was the day that we buried him or it was the wake. I'm not sure which one it was. But I remember it was after we were praying with my whole entire mom's side. And I remember during the praying, I felt really anxious. And I was like, nope, this is too much for me. So I remember I got up, I went to the kitchen. And I drank some soda, and then I'm like, you know what, this is not working. I need to go outside. So I went outside, didn't help either. And I just started freaking out. I got really anxious, and I don't know, I don't know if you would consider that an anxiety attack or panic attack because I got really nervous. I wanted to cry and all this and that. And my parents saw the way, like, I was like, not, I don't want to say jumpy, like, but the way that I was acting. And my aunts and my uncle saw, they were like, oh, are you okay? And I'm like, nope, I'm not. And it's just stuff like that. And I think if it wasn't for that specific moment or episode, my parents, especially my mom, would have taken notice of how serious it has gotten, especially with my dad. So,
And so now that that's been a couple years or a year?
like a year and a half?
And
or like a year. No, like a year. Because it kind of ended more last year.
Would you say that a year later now, would the situation be handled differently? Or is it the same?
It is handled differently. And I'm grateful that I haven't experienced that type of anxiety anymore. But again, it's because my attitude has changed and just like my routines and beliefs and stuff like that.
I bring that up to transition into this clevelandclinic.org website that has a post of overcoming mental health stigma in the Latino community. And their article starts off saying, some Latinos view mental health illness as a sign of weakness. Others think it's a personal issue to be kept quiet. Others fear being labeled loco, Spanish for crazy. And then it says, using the same surgeon's report that I used a couple of minutes ago, this same report is quoted as saying that only 20% of Latinos with a mental health disorder talk about it with a primary care physician. And then a psychiatrist by the name of Diana Lorenzo, who is an MD at the Cleveland Clinic Center for Behavioral Health, is quoted saying, mental health issues have a stigma in the Latino community. Many Latinos would prefer to ignore these conditions over talking about them openly. So I use you guys' Renee's from the previous episode and Angie from today, from a couple of minutes ago, and my own experience from last episode. And I wanted to talk more about the stigma. I wanted to ask, especially with Renee's perspective, being the co-host that is a male, do you how big of a role, for those that don't understand where we're coming from, how big of a role as a male in Hispanic culture does machismo play into why mental health has such a stigma?
It plays a huge role because...
And can you explain machismo to those that don't know what it means?
Well, machismo is sort of this mentality that the old school mentality that men are the breadwinners. Men are doing everything to prove themselves, quote unquote, manly, while it's the women who stay at home, cook, clean, and they're generally the more sentimental ones, the more feminine, basically. So the role machismo plays in the topic of depression is it plays a huge role because for most guys, if you let anyone know, hey, I'm struggling with like depression or something, a lot of times you'll be viewed as weak.
Mhm.
Oh, you can't deal with it alone. You have to go to others about it. Like, be a man, suck it up.
Yeah.
That's kind of like the role it plays and the mentality it feeds. And I think that's why that we have such a hard time being able to talk about it,
Mhm.
because if you do talk about it, you're seen as weak, and even something for girls in general too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I know.
And-
I was gonna ask Angie the same question, but we'll let you continue first.
And yeah, I think that's the role machismo plays, and that's how it's seen. You're viewed as weak
Mhm.
for.
So that would
struggling
cause a male in Hispanic culture, no matter the age. But if they're raised in a household where machismo is a thing, which is prevalent in Hispanic families, then it would cause not just a denial of speaking up, but also create internal issues that worsen symptoms if you're faced with a mental health
exactly.
disorder.
Yeah.
Angie, how about you as the female
No,
in a
I'm,
Hispanic
I'm-
household?
I'm ready to answer.
Go ahead.
Loving the enthusiasm.
Yeah. So from the feminine side, I guess, from what Renee was talking
from
about.
your perspective, yep.
Yeah. So I feel like mental illness when it comes to, women, I feel like, especially once you have children or you're pregnant or whatnot, I think that there's a lot of pressure of being a good mom. And like, let's say if I have depression and I had like 2 children, for an example, I don't want them to see what I'm going through. I have to be strong for them. So I don't want to show quote unquote weakness or that I'm, suffering, etc. So I feel like if you're a sister, a mom, but especially a mom, I think it's that pressure of, being strong, being a good mom,
Yeah.
quote unquote, a strong woman.
Mhm.
It's, the pressure is definitely there.
Now, I want to end off this first part of this episode and finish off answering the question of we are all the oldest child. We are all the oldest child in our family.
First
And-
generation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're a first generation college student in our families, and we're also the oldest of all the children that our parents had. So, as being the eldest, how does that affect how does that enforce the stigma in the family, in the household? How does that make it worse for you guys? Angie, I'd like you to start off.
Yeah, there's a lot. So from my previous responses, again, so with being the oldest, I am the oldest of 3. I have 2 younger sisters that are twins, and I'm only 2 years apart from them. To me, I consider them little, but they're not little. 'Cause
Yeah.
they get pissed off when, it's only 2 years, but to me, they're still little. Obviously,
Yeah.
they're my little sisters, so I'm going to say little. So for me, again, so with the Hispanic pressure, the oldest, the oldest of 3
Yeah.
and pressure, and then also from being all of us girls, to me, the 3 stigmas is definitely there, especially when it's all combined. So when it comes to that, to me, and especially in high school, I became more aware of trying to be a good role model for myself, but not only just for myself, but also for my sisters.
Yeah.
So with the academics and the personal stuff aside, I found that really important. But once I started college and I started experiencing more of anxiety, I tried to kind of be more self-aware and try to figure out what I'm going to do with myself. So just in case if they ever feel a certain way, I know what to do or, where to take them of, having resources.
See, and I completely understand. I mean, my issues didn't start before college. Mine have been since elementary school. But hitting college, it becomes tougher to keep things open, no matter how good a relationship you may have with your siblings. As I have a younger brother myself, almost 2 years difference, and it becomes hard being the role model to them because you're not thinking in your head that we've had conversations, me and my sibling, about being, I look up to you, whatever.
Yeah.
There may be some sibling relationships that had those conversations. Mine doesn't, and by your response, yours probably doesn't. So we don't talk about it openly, but the mental note we have in our head about being the role model comes from our parents. Because we're thinking about what they're going to say.
Yeah, exactly.
And what they're going to think about and how they look at me being the role model to my brother instead of me seeing myself as a role model. So that's an added layer to an already pressure that amounts from me thinking about is this how I want my brother to see me as?
Yeah.
Like being the oldest, because it's not that they're just gonna see me, but I know my parents will be thinking, speaking, and critiquing me about it.
You're judging.
Yeah. So Renee, any comment or that you want to add to either of the two questions that were brought up?
So I think being the oldest and having to deal with depression and all these mental health problems,
Yeah.
there is that added pressure where you have to be the strong one.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of going back to like the whole machismo thing, you have to not show any weakness, because the whole topic of being
The eldest.
the oldest.
And can you talk to the audience? Can you tell them your siblings? How many who are?
So I
What's
got
the
3 younger siblings, all girls,
mhm.
and
Besides your father, of course?
yeah, so I'm the only male besides my father, and I think that adds an extra layer of interestingness.
Yeah, because if going to the role model issue, your role model issue is you have 3 younger sisters, which is not an issue that I or Angie has, because Angie has same sex siblings and I have a brother.
So yeah, I have to be not only strong because I'm the oldest, but strong because I'm the only guy.
Yeah.
And there's that added little pressure, you know.
And and we say it in a joking manner with a smirk, saying, "Oh, it's an added pressure," because we're so used to it, because we grew up being raised on it. But to anyone else, they may think it's just little, but it's like the weight of the world almost.
Like a dam.
It is even heavier than all the books I've carried put together in one book bag for me to go through a day.
It's heavier than Atlas carrying the world.
Yeah.
That's a little Greek reference.
Or if you play Loteria, the little icon for El Mundo, that's another
That's exactly
good
how
reference.
you feel sometimes.
Yeah. And although it may look like a type of ball, so you think, oh, it's this type of heavy, it is ridiculously heavy, that weight. So I'd like you to continue, Renee, with your sisters.
But yeah, it's just it's not that you can't do it, but it's more like you shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be the strong one. You have to be ready for them to come to you.
You know?
But it's not always easy for it to be the other way around.
Yeah.
And that's me thinking out loud.
And that is the end of part 1.